Okay, so this is an idea for search and rescue. So I recently participated in a search and rescue for someone who was lost. Um, and it made me think about how these tracker apps sort of work and what I'm comfortable with. So there are tracker applications like Life 360 and say just find my phone features, things like that, that will show people where you're going. I think for a lot of people, they're uncomfortable with sharing too much. I tend to think of these sort of as stalker apps. If you turn them on too much, you're revealing too much information. And if you're your typical sort of outdoor person taking some trip, you don't necessarily want to worry someone, and so therefore you don't really want to tell someone to be concerned about that you're going to be back, because most of the time things all work out, and it just creates a certain level of discomfort with the people that you like to have know if there's some problem. So it seems like there ought to be a way that people can go ahead and maybe take the adventures that they want and be far safer because of some privacy concerned and sort of comfort concerned versions of an application. So the idea is what? So imagine as a some sort of hiker that you're interested in going on a trip, and you are allowed to just start traveling. There's just a go button. And so on the application, there's not very much to do to set up. So I guess as a precursor, you do your emergency contacts. As a pre-setup, and then there's basically like a green go, and you have the ability to just start traveling, and the next thing is sort of like a timer, so sort of a check-in stop timer. So as you're traveling around, the application pings the server and starts keeping waypoints of where you are traveling. And the nice thing about this is having plans ahead of time about where you're going and what's going on might be useful and could be a feature of the app where you are making those promises, but a lot of the trouble occurs when something unusual happens and you decide you've changed your mind about where you're going, and so the things you had planned is different from where you're at the moment. So maybe that's more harmful than helpful in the many cases where people do actually get stuck. So this thing pings a server. So this is on the server. There's not much use on the phone. Of course, it logs in on the phone as you go along. And because you're walking in and out of service, because of the sort of places where you're at, things are cached in a way. So maybe certain sections of this are not updated until you kind of come into service or not. And this has to do with this timer interval. So if you come out of service for a certain amount of time, or you stop moving for a certain amount of time, then this is what triggers an alarm. And so that alarm is when the people that you have in your emergency contacts are notified that you decided to go on a trip, and here's where you're at, and really you're overdue in some way. And that's the core part of the structure. What it allows is people can take adventures, have a certain amount of degree of flexibility, because you could manage some sort of a plan, right? If you decided to put one in, and then have that plan also be part of this sort of track of what things you've decided, or whether you maybe change your mind about where you're going, you can update those plans. And then, of course, adjust timers and that sort of stuff depending on where you're traveling. What's nice about this is it takes hopefully very little configuration, and nobody needs to be notified about anything, about a trip or anything like that, until there is actually something to be concerned about. And at that point, the emergency contacts are fired. And so the idea would be people can just travel and do the things that they want, and they're not making anybody that they make anybody concerned ahead of time. And hopefully that level of both privacy and convenience makes it so that people feel comfortable about all of this information and how it's being kept really just privately for the user, instead of being published ahead of time or making anybody concerned. So that is the core idea of the application, and I wonder if somebody might like to try to take that on. Thank you very much.